just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Monday. I don't care what's going on in the world. It's still Meatloaf Monday. So hit it, man.
I think I'll try the meatloaf sandwich.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, meatloaf.
What is it? I'm only asking in case I have to describe it later to a doctor.
Look, it's nutritious. It's delicious.
Made out of meat. Add ketchup if you want. I couldn't care less.
I couldn't care less, he says. Pushing buttons so ably on the board. JP, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How about you?
I am good. Golfing this weekend?
Yep.
A perfect weekend for it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's when you live in an apartment, there's no grass to mow. Golf is more readily available to you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I kind of wish I had I like mowing the grass, but I have to wait till I get a house to mow my own grass one day.
Your day's coming. Your grass is in your future. I feel certain.
I hope grass is in my future.
Absolutely. All right, listen, we got a great show laid on for you today. You can only imagine the topic, right? But there are no guests lined up for today. You're going to spend a deep dive time, but that means I'm also going to want y'all's feedback. I mean, this is an audience that definitely has opinions, and I want to hear them. So go ahead and get your texting fingers ready. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text me your thoughts. And yes, the bulk of today's show, if not all of it, is going to be related to what happened in Iran over the weekend. And then that means I've got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, Iran, know the why. What does that mean? Well, I mean, it's really easy for folks to have an opinion about whether they do or don't like what happened this weekend. But do you know the background? And no, I don't mean just that they might have been making nukes. I'm talking about, do you know the background? Do you know the history? Do you know, actually, by the way, the theological grounds by which Iran acts? I'm going to go into all of that. I'm going to dig into it deep. I'm going to give you things that perhaps you've never heard before, because that's what we do on this show. We dig deep and give you the facts. So yes, Iran, know the why. Know the why. That's number 1, the Triple Dipper. Number 2, keep your head on a swivel. Reports right now, U.S. has just intercepted Iranian missiles flying into Qatar airspace. Now, by the way, this appears to have been a very tepid attempt by Iran to save face and show that they could still do something. Didn't work. All 6 missiles were intercepted. That being said, you still got to keep your head on a swivel. If you're traveling, and I mean even if you're doing things here within the continental United States, this is a time to keep your head on a swivel. We'll talk about the whys and wherefores on that. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, the wrong side of everything. Democrats have lost their minds. Now, I realize there's never Trumpers out there too, but Democrats right now have completely lost their minds. We're going to talk about how they continually seem to be on the wrong side of everything. But I'll be honest with you, there are a few high points in there of members of their own party actually calling them out. We'll talk about it. Wrong side of everything. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll just remind you guys that every single day, attorney Stan McDonald, he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. Stan McDonald is a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And yes, indeed, Stan McDonald is also your daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. And I'll tell you more about Stan in just a minute. All right, if you're watching the news, then you recognize that we've had some major news in the last couple of days. Epic, really. I mean, truthfully, the kind of news that creates a landmark in time. It's the kind of news that has the ability to turn the course of world events in a different direction. In sports terms, what might be seen this past weekend could be called a blowout victory. In Wall Street terms, everything would be up. In politics, it would have been like a decisive win without a runoff. But in the slang of soldiers on the battlefield, oh yeah, the U.S. just brought the scunion. I love that word. I don't know why. I just do. Scunion. It just sort of encapsulates the sense that something came down hard and strong and decisive. Rumor has it, by the way, the word scunion came into the military lexicon back in Vietnam. It means that you were laying down the heat on the enemy. No letting up till the decisive win was in the bag. Scunion. Yeah, the Ayatollah just felt the scunion. I once sat on my fob in central Baghdad back during the first Shia uprising in 2004, and I watched a Spectre gunship raining down fire and brimstone on the north side of an area called Solder City. It was nighttime. We could hear Spectre overhead, but we could only see him with night vision. We literally got out lawn chairs and night vision goggles, and we watched as the heat rained down in the form of 25 millimeter Gatling guns, 40 millimeter Bofors cannons, and 105 millimeter howitzers, just bringing overwhelming precision fire from way up in the nosebleed section. I don't know what they were targeting, but whatever it was didn't stand a chance. It was apparent that Spectre was bringing the scunion, and that's exactly what it was. It was strong, decisive, and it was final and without equivocation. Look, what we saw this past weekend, it was scunion in spades, as the U.S. launched what has been named Operation Midnight Hammer. Even the name says scunion. 7 B-2 stealth bombers flew over 37 hours straight, refueling in flight 3 times. Over 125 U.S. aircraft participated in the operation, everything from refueling tankers, fighter escorts, drones, intelligence, surveillance, and target acquisition aircraft. U.S. naval assets in the Gulf launched 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles. The missiles were timed to coincide with the arrival of the B-2s, each of which carried a pair of 15-ton GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, aka bunker busters. The Iranian nuclear sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan have been devastated, and we're waiting to see the final bomb damage assessment, but thus far, what we believe is they have indeed been debilitated to the point of inoperability. They didn't even, by the way, the Iranians didn't even receive warning of any kind of effort on our part. It was a complete in and out without any radar detection. Our assets flew in with impunity to Iranian airspace, dropped their payloads, and then returned to base. That, my friends, is scunion of the highest order. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said no other country on planet Earth could have pulled off this operation. And he's right. The technology, the skill, the assets, the warriors, nobody has what we have, and I do not take that for granted. But there are those who disagree with this effort. There are those who are of the belief that a nuclear-capable Iran posed no real security threat to the U.S. I mean, it couldn't be in our national interest because we weren't officially at war with Iran, they say. Trump needs congressional approval for something like this, they say. Iran was just being Iran, they say. We don't ever really need to fire a shot first, they say. All fighting is bad, some say. We're just tired of the shooting, they say. I get it. I get all of that. I also get that sometimes the decisions have to be made. So let's break some of that down. I mean, first of all, every president is authorized under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution to defend the U.S. and U.S. persons against actual or anticipated attacks. It does not require a full-scale declaration of war to be able to mobilize assets of the U.S. military as the commander-in-chief in order to strike at an enemy of the state. It doesn't. Reagan did not obtain congressional approval to invade Grenada to rescue Americans. Bush did not obtain congressional approval to invade Panama and take out Noriega. Obama did not obtain congressional approval for the raid to take out bin Laden in the friendly nation of Pakistan. Each one of those was a limited scope action requiring presidential authority for the use of military force, and that's it. Now, George W. Bush, he did seek and obtain approval from Congress before he invaded both Afghanistan and Iraq separately. Different circumstances, large-scale mobilizations, boots on the ground. But then let's look again at history. Let's think about this. Let's take a look at not just the legalities. Let's consider who Iran is. Let's consider what Iran has done. First of all, a nuclear Iran is a destabilizer on the world stage. It's a danger to the U.S. and our allies. Make no mistake, Iran has been killing U.S. troops and personnel, fomenting discord, and supplying terrorists for decades. The Ayatollahs have made very clear that one of their chief aims is to damage or destroy the U.S. and to wipe out Israel. In a few minutes, I'll show you an article. In 2023, the Ayatollah Khomeini announced that death to America was not just a slogan, it was the policy of the government of Iran. You hear that? Not just a slogan, not just a chant in the streets, the actual policy of the government of Iran. When your enemies tell you what they want to do to you, there is no wisdom in ignoring it. Iran's been killing U.S. troops and fomenting discord, like I said, for decades. In 1979, 52 Americans were taken hostage within months of the Ayatollah seizing power. 4 years later, in 1983, 241 Marines were killed in the Beirut barracks bombing. Just prior to 9/11, 17 U.S. sailors were killed in the USS Cole and over 40 more wounded. Over 600 troops were killed by Iranian influence in Iraq. Some estimates go as high as 2,000. Every single one of those was Iranian influence or Iranian actors or just Iran itself. If in fact Iran achieved its dream of becoming a nuclear power, what would they do with it? I mean, would they just sit back and smile and feel good about themselves? Would they use it for world peace? Would they just be satisfied with just having a nuke? Now we're in the nuke club. The answer to all that is absolutely no. A nuclear Iran would be an immediate threat to regional stability. Saudi Arabia, who by the way hates Iran, has already said they would not sit idly by. Their crown prince Abdullah said just 2 years ago that they would put all of their endless, boundless resources into developing or acquiring nuclear weapons themselves. It would have been an arms race in the Middle East. Bad actors on the world stage, they'd be negotiating with the Ayatollahs trying to buy nukes on the black market. Ayatollahs who have sold, by the way, every missile, gun, and drone that the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas ever fired in anger would only be too glad to be courted as the chief supplier of nuclear arms and nuclear influence to the evils who hate America. But let's also consider this. It's not just the history of what Iran has done. It's not just the history of what Iran has actually said. Let's also consider their motivations, because their motivations are different than the average. This is not about détente. This is not about mutually assured destruction where two semi-rational nations on the world stage look at each other and they stare each other down. This is not that. You see, the things that implicate and create the decisions that Iranian leadership would make are different. The Shia extremists who run Iran come from a radical position that involves a belief in what they tend to call the 12th Imam. The 12th Imam, the return of the Mahdi, they say. It will restore peace to the world. Sounds nice when you hear it that way, until you realize that the radicals of Iran's Shia leadership believe that they can usher in the return of the 12th Imam by creating massive destruction of the world order. In essence, they believe that if they can create chaos, destruction, warfare, and bloodshed by actual man-made catalysts, then they can cause their lost savior to suddenly reappear and reward them for their efforts. Basically, they believe that they can drive God into a position that they want him in. And the only way to do it is to create chaos and destruction. It's more than just the idea of Iran wishing to have influence in its region of the world at large. The radical Twelvers, they call them, of the Iranian ruling theocracy, they want to cause destruction in a spiritual sense too. And they are driven by that, which is different than any other nation on earth striving to have nukes. It's an overarching, deep-rooted hatred of peace in order to obtain peace. These are not rational people. They are sick at heart and they wanted a nuke. And that's a bad, bad combination. Look, everything I just said is true. You can go check it out yourself. The history, the spiritual radicalism, nobody can deny that. Iran has been an evil empire now for 4 decades. They have acted on their evil intent. Naysayers and isolationists, they know the things that I've just described are actually true. So in order to get around it, they have to either disregard it or pretend that it's false. But they can't. They can't deny it at all because it's all true. So I'll close this by saying this. I don't fault anybody for being concerned. It's possible to vote for Trump and not agree with everything he says or does. I get that. I agree. But I have to ask, what was the benefit of doing nothing? You see, that's the difference between Trump and every other president, especially Obama and Biden. Many of the previous occupants of the Oval Office, they looked with fear about the consequences of doing something. Trump chose to look at the consequences of doing nothing. Pundits and politicians, they can all have their say, but they get the luxury of having their opinions without being in charge of anything. Trump rewrote history, and history is going to be his judge. But I believe that in the end, history is going to treat him very well over this decision to bring the scunion on Iran's nuclear ambitions. But in the end, regardless of what you think about it, Saturday was a huge day, capping off a huge week. A week that cemented the ability of the people of this world to stop wondering what's going to happen if the nation that caused more death and destruction in its short 45-year history than perhaps any other had ever gotten a nuke. There will be rhetoric. There will likely be mistruths and protests, but there are now after the fact. Just like watching a Spectre gunship bring scunion from on high, we just watched hard, deliberative, precise, and effective, devastating effect of scunion being brought by the United States against the people who have said that their policy was death to America. I, for one, am glad. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Ran long on that one, but I'll tell you, you can have your opinions all you want, but you have to deny the truth if you want to get around it. Because everything I just said is legit. They theocratically and historically want to destroy the United States. They need it because that's their theocracy. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, listen, the text lines have blown up. You guys keep texting in. I'm going to catch up with a bunch of them here in just a minute. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. What are your thoughts on all this? Good, bad, or ugly? Attorney Stan McDonald, though, got to tell you about Stan. So, yeah, Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I know Stan personally. I will just tell you that he is not only the kind of guy who can fight for your legal needs, but he is the kind of guy who has been in the trenches as a warrior on things that, conservatives, ruffians, like right-side ruffians like us care about, all the policies and the politics, all of it. He's an OG ruffian from way back. But yeah, Stan McDonald, he's represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can represent you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say, if Stan's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your foes would have no greater adversary. I'm just telling you, Stan McDonald, he is there for you. If you need him, I'm going to give you his phone number so you can call him. If you need a lawyer in North Alabama, he may be your man. Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his phone number, 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Wait, two breaths. No representation made. The quality of legal service be performed is greater than the quality of legal service for the lawyers. I just slurred the last part.
You can't do two breaths.
That's what threw me off.
Yeah, that's like breaking your rhythm.
No representation made. The quality of legal service be performed is greater than the quality of legal service performed by other lawyers. And I'm telling you right now, that's silly. This is silly. He's a great lawyer. How do you like that?
I didn't take two breaths on that one.
All right. We're taking a break because I ran long on the monologue, but we'll come right back. I got a ton of texts. Text it, 833-687-4448. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one. I mean to say, this show goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning, and then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Then there's all of y'all. We got a ton of you right now watching out there in the whole wide world, on the World Wide Web, going to rightsidemedia.org or to Rumble or to Facebook or to X or to YouTube. Anyway, we appreciate you. And then all you podcasters, by the way, thank you too. What I'm trying to say is we love this audience. You're the reason why we do what we do. The text message. You getting comments over there on YouTube too? Chime in if you got anything.
We got a couple. Well, first we got John from Huntsville just saying Happy Meatloaf Monday.
Meatloaf Monday.
Listening in from Lynchburg, Tennessee today.
Oh.
And we got Bruce on X says, awesome, Brother Phil, straight to the point. Awesome monologue.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, John. David at Bucky's checking in, says, Phil, Democrats are screaming that President Trump didn't see congressional... I think your voice texting to me, brother. Congressional Perrier is what your text says. I think you meant congressional approval. Democrat leadership prior to initiating the mission. He said, I don't remember President Obama seeking approval or briefing Republicans for taking bin Laden out. Perfect point. You were on it, man. And that's exactly right. Mark from Tony, Alabama says, I just turned on my radio. I might be off topic, but now that Trump took care of Iran's nuclear power plant, can we check the the LCA top and the uranium and know that it's okay. All right. I'm not sure. I see what he's saying. The isotope. He was something in spell check was not helping you, brother. But Mark from Tony, what he's talking about there, I'm going to get to in just a minute. There are some serious beliefs that Hillary Clinton made a drug deal, basically, when she was Secretary of State, that approved the sale of a company called Uranium One. Uranium One was sold to the Russians. The Russians then may or may not have taken possession of some uranium that was mined for the U.S. And then the yellow cake that comes as a matter of enriching it disappeared. And that may have been what helped get Iran off and running. Thank you, Hillary. By the way, soon thereafter, massive Russian donations to the Clinton Foundation. Funny how that works out. Ken from Harvest says, you may not remember the 1980 song by Vince Vance, Bomb Iran. It's worth a listen. Very appropriate. I do recall it. Spin off from what was done by the Beach Boys. Jason in Oak Ridge says, complacency kills, and you are correct, sir. By the way, t-shirt on the way there, Jason. Bruce from Springville said, I have a question. Is the Iranian government run by a bunch of AOCs? I don't know. They, at the very least, they may be run by a bunch of Ilhan Omars. I'm not sure. Jack from Huntsville says, when the talk first came out of hitting these nuclear sites with 2 bunker busters, I thought, man, hit them with 6. Then we saw Trump's actual attack. Reminds me of my favorite quote from Hannibal Smith. Overkill is underrated. Yes. By the way they did it too. I mean, I guess we can just go ahead and kind of interject as we go. If you recall, I think it was Thursday or Friday, there were reports that were out saying that there were B-2 stealth bombs. See, all the B-2s are stationed in Missouri, I believe, and that a flight of B-2s was headed to Guam. That'd be west, flying west to Guam. That was a feint. What we now know is the Guam flight was designed to distract, whereas the rest of the 7 that flew the actual mission went east. Did in-flight refueling, I think 3 times total in the mission, twice on the way there, once on the way back. If I'm not mistaken, 37-hour round trip. That's a lot of time in the cockpit, man. And by the way, somebody told me there's no toilet in a B-2. How does that happen? Surely to goodness.
Yeah, no, surely that's not the case.
I think that's worthy of looking up. Is there a toilet in the B-2? I mean, what do they do? I mean, never mind. I don't want to know.
If you know what's funny is people definitely looked this up because I typed in "Is there a toy?" TOI, and the top thing is there a toilet on the B2?
Is there?
Let's see. Yes, the B2 does have a toilet on board.
Okay. See,
It has a toilet, a bed, and a microwave. So
stop it.
yeah,
Does it really?
mm-hmm.
It's like a camper. It's a Batwing camper flying over. Okay.
I mean, I would hope so. If you're going to
37
fly
hours.
37 hours on it.
I mean, you can, yeah. Okay. Okay. Did you get your catheter before the trip?
Yeah.
Great. Let's go. Don't eat anything. Here we are. Alif Mathen says, Colonel, I'll take some scrambled scunion with a side of home fries all day long. Nice. Cameron from Decatur says, I guess if they keep calling us the great Satan, they're going to find out what's like to have hell rain down on them. Well, I think they did. And listen, I'm not gloating over this. I mean, so let's make sure you understand my tone. Successful mission. Everybody came home safe. I'm glad it's over with. Praise God. At the same time, I hope we don't have to repeat it. I hope this is it. I hope we're done. I hope this is a one and done, and that Iran says, holy crap, I guess we're going to the table now. You know what I really hope too? I hope that the people of Iran decide that the Ayatollahs are not worth having. I hope that they will overthrow their own governance and set up something newer and better. I hope that they'll go back to the moderate position that used to make them our allies before the Iranian Revolution in 1979 that put the Ayatollahs in place. And don't ever forget, within just a few months of the Ayatollah being, flown in from his exile and setting up the caliphate and taking control of the government and kicking out the Shah, don't ever forget that radicals stormed the U.S. embassy and took 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. Let me dissect that for a minute. Radicals, within months of the new government who could have stopped it, the new government who could have said, don't do it, the new government who could have said, stop what you're doing right now and let them go, just a wink and a nod. Oh, we're just so pleased with you activists, you youth among us, doing what you are doing for the great Ayatollah. Well, they didn't just capture some tourists on the street. They stormed the U.S. embassy, which under international law is considered to be sovereign territory of the nation whose flag flies over it. Every embassy is considered to be sovereign territory. If you attack the embassy, it's as if you were attacking the ground of the country that the embassy represents. And they didn't care. So they attacked the U.S. embassy in 1979 within months of the Ayatollah taking power and took 52 Americans hostage. And they paraded them around, blindfolded, mistreated them, kept them for 444 days. It didn't matter what Jimmy Carter said or did. They knew Jimmy Carter was too weak. He wasn't going to do a thing. It wasn't until the campaign season they began to realize this guy, Ronald Reagan, might actually go the distance. And he did. Ronald Reagan won the election, and within days, they were freed. That's the way Iran has played cat and mouse for 45 years. So am I glad they don't have a nuke capability right now? Well, as far as I know, we don't. I mean, we don't have the full BDA on this, the bomb damage assessment. That's still to come. There's going to be some indications that there are facilities left there. Whether they're operational, we don't know. What we also know, though, is they are fully exposed. They are right now apparently unable to stop any attack. We're actually seeing Israeli jets refueling over Iranian airspace. I mean, that's a low, slow, and dangerous position to be in. If you don't have control of the air, you can't air refuel, because that's just like saying I'm walking slow through a minefield. But no, we've got absolute control of the air right now. We didn't even have a radar paint our targets, our planes as targets in this raid. Clear indication that they have been basically just, their air defenses have been denigrated to the point that they are no longer in existence. The SA-300 and SA-400 systems that they got from Russia are just done. And then the vast majority of their missile launchers are done. Not all of them, obviously, because they launched some today, which I'll talk about more in a minute. But I'm just telling you, what we saw this past weekend was a clear indication of what's known as air dominance and a clear indication that the United States can bring the scunion whenever it needs to. But again, my hope is one and done. We're through with it. John from Harvest checking in. He says, Phil, good monologue. Kind of a show news weekend, right? Yeah. A slow news weekend, he says. I support President Trump's decision to strike nuclear sites because Iran having nukes is a bad option, since I fully expect they would use them if they had them. Major concerns now are what Medvedev said, in that other countries will be willing to give Iran a nuke. Also, there's a very real chance we'll find out how many sleeper terrorist cells the previous administration led into the country. We all need to stay situationally aware. All right, well, you just hit my top two dippers. So yeah, one of the things, we'll talk about the head on a swivel, what we should be watching for both here and abroad. But also know this, that the Russian president, not Putin, but Medvedev, who's his lackey, who's always making just off the cuff, kind of like randomly bad statements, said perhaps other countries should give them a nuke they're not going to do it. First of all, they're not. What an asinine statement to make. Nobody believes for a second that Russia's going to go, it'd be a good idea. How about we give the Iranians a nuke? Because, they've got no air defenses and we can't stop anything from happening. But why don't we just fly one in and drop it off and say, here, fellas, good luck with this. Do you know how to work it? How would you deliver it? Oh, this is wonderful. No one's going to do that. North Korea is the craziest option. Possibilities exist for North Korea to go, we shall give it to you so the great Satan shall be, but they're probably not, because they only have a limited number themselves and they're going to hoard them because they believe that's what keeps the world at bay. So I don't think anybody's going to wind up doing it. And that was a pretty asinine statement. That was some jackassery right there from Medvedev. I don't put any stock in it. I won't ignore it because it's there. But the reality is Medvedev making that statement was almost like, political immaturity on his part. Nonetheless, he just raised the stakes a little bit. So now we have to watch him, see what he's doing, and make sure they don't get crazy. But I don't think they are. Last couple, then I'll take a break. John from Huntsville, Phil, amazing monologue. Also, JP, did you see the Oklahoma City Thunder defeat the Indiana Pacers last night to win their first NBA championship? He said, by the way, I'm in Lynchburg, Tennessee right now. A lot of Jack Daniels stuff around here.
No, I did not watch it. I didn't watch much sports at all this weekent. Very inundated with politics this weekend. So, no, I didn't watch any sports really. Yeah, and some golf. Yeah, a brief time out from it. Yeah.
Jeff from Indiana says, hey, Phil, you can't fix crazy, but you can make it disappear with the right ordinance. He said, I just hope there's enough virgins to go around. He says, yeah, no doubt. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. I'll save some of these text messages for after the break. When we get back, I'm going to start diving on into Iran. Know the why. Don't just talk about what you saw this weekend. Understand the background for it, because that's where you get into the decision-making process. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. All right, so Dave from Capshaw just sent us, he sent us a picture of the toilet inside of a B2.
I saw that, yeah, and the bunk beds and all, yeah.
Is that real? Let me see the bunk. Well, that's pretty legit.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's, I mean, I'm assuming, Dave, I trust you. I will go ahead and say, Dave must have sent the real deal. Little plaid pillowcases on the pillows. That's nice. Listen, it's a Cadillac of the sky. I would expect no less.
The Cadillac of the sky. Is that actually what it's called, the nickname?
It is now.
Okay.
Cool. Was there another one on there? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that. I saw the meme about the Ayatollah talking to Trump on the phone. Barry's Mathen says Iran has been the head of the snake in the Middle East ever since the fall of the Shah. All the groups such as Hamas, Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood are just parts of the snake's body. Cut the snake's head off the body. They cut the snake's head off. The body usually dies shortly thereafter. It's way past time to cut off the head. Yeah, but you know what though? Here's the thing. Like Trump has made it clear we're not looking for us to be in charge of regime change. But he pointed out, if you can't, how did he word it over the weekend? If the Iranian people can't find someone to make Iran great again, then what's up?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I took issue with that, in truth, because he insinuated in a way like we're going to make Iran great again. So we don't need to be doing anything with Iran's regime. But yeah, I don't know.
He actually was talking about the people doing it though. And he's even followed up, and Rubio did too, if I'm not mistaken, and said clearly this is, but the same way that the people of Iran put the Ayatollah in power, they can take him out of power. This is a fragile regime, by the way. Never been more fragile, and it's only 45 years old. In the eyes of the world, this is a blip. All right, this is like a little pinprick on the map of history. This thing that's called the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's a failed experiment. Its people have suffered under their rule. I mean, we're talking about women being beaten in the street because their hijab is not worn correctly. We're talking about people disappearing in the night. Right now, what we're also hearing from insiders is that Iran is trying to preserve its strength internally. And so they're doing mass arrests and people are disappearing who they believe might be a threat to the Ayatollahs. So, but at some point, history always dictates that a people can only be pushed so far. I'm curious to see how this is going to go. Joanna from Hartselle says, when I first heard what President Trump did this weekend, my first thought was, I can't wait to see what Phil has to say about this on Monday. Well, thank you, Joanna. I appreciate that. So it's so nice to have someone in the media you can believe and trust. Thank you, Phil and JP, for all you do. Joanna, thank you very much. Y'all make it worthwhile. Last couple, then I'll jump into some materials here. I say I will. It's about almost time for the top of the hour. Adam from Athens says, I definitely don't want any new wars, but the strike needed to be done to protect the world's population. JP, I met Clark Lee this weekend. He was joking about beating Bama and let me know it wasn't a fluke. He said it's going to be happening again in their house this year.
Sure.
Well, that was a complete change. I was halfway through that sentence and I didn't even know where we were going.
We'll see.
Clark Lee?
Vanderbilt's head coach.
Okay. Last one, new texter. Who we got here? Steve from Sale Creek, Tennessee. Steve from Sale Creek, Tennessee says Soylent Green, Charlton Heston, Friday's movie. Oh, he must be listening to the podcast from Friday or something. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Good enough. Hey, listen, we're going to come back and I'm going to dive into this topic. I got to tell you, I got a piece here from Daily Caller. Scott Jennings may be one of my new heroes in the world of punditry. Scott Jennings, never one afraid to say what needs to be said, no matter who's sitting in front of him when he says it. Scott Jennings actually works for CNN, but he's an avowed conservative. Just got back from Israel, by the way. He was live tweeting from Israel during some of the bombings and things that were happening, going down to the shelters. But he was sitting there with someone named, if I can say it right, Xochitl Hinojosa. Xochitl Hinojosa, a former Democratic National Committee spokesperson. There, you can already tell where this is going. But Hinojosa claimed that President Donald Trump failed to prove that Iran posed a real true threat to the U.S. and thus should have received approval from Congress before bombing 3 nuclear sites. And went on to say, and I'm assuming is Xochitl Hinojosa a guy or a girl? Do you know by any chance?
I've never heard of him or heard it. I don't know.
Okay, so it said Congress must see the underlying intelligence about how, if there were a direct threat and whether the U.S. needed to respond. But as of right now, I have not seen that, said Hinojosa. And then Scott Jennings chimed in. And he said, you're arguing that after 46 years of the Iranian regime killing Americans, threatening Americans, saying over and over again, death to America, that maybe they just didn't mean it? He said that they were just like fiery but mostly peaceful Iranian butchers. Like, I don't understand, but this is like a righteous strike, he said. By the way, I mentioned a minute ago, and I've got an article that I'll dive into here in a minute, that in 2023, the Ayatollah said that the slogan or the saying, death to Iran, is not a slogan. It's a policy of their government. There's also footage from 2018 with members of the Iranian parliament chanting it on the floor of their parliament. More on this when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. number 2 already. Where did hour number 1 even go? That just flew by. But hour number 2 here on a Meatloaf Monday. And it's a Meatloaf Monday with a lot of news, but all the news is heading in the same direction right now. Forgive me, but I feel like we have a lot more to dive into, and I'm about to jump into it, but I got to give you this breaking news. So in case you haven't heard, right before the show, Iran did lash out in response to the fact that it was bombed by U.S. troops or by U.S. Forces Saturday. Iran lashed out by launching missiles at our airbase in Qatar. So if you look at the map, Qatar's directly across the waters from Iran. So what we know right now is, because President Trump just issued a statement on it, is that this was a attack by 14 missiles. Here, I'll just read it to you. Iran, this is Donald J. Trump, his Truth Social. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected, he said, and have very effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles fired. 13 were knocked down. 1 was set free because it was headed off in a non-threatening direction. He said, I am pleased to report that no Americans were harmed, hardly any damage done. Most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system, and there will hopefully be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Cracks me up. He always says, thank you for your attention to this matter. But there's the thing. By the way, when we took out Soleimani during the first Trump administration, Iran did the same thing. They had to launch something. They had to show the world they could, they had to basically spit back, if you will. But they called ahead and said, hey, by the way, just so you know, we're about to launch some missiles, just making you aware. They did the same thing here. They apparently notified the government of Qatar, and they notified the United States. Okay, I'm glad, but yeah, 14 missiles. Now we fired 24 Tomahawks and we used 125 planes, multiple naval vessels to include submarines, and launched 24 Tomahawk missiles and 14 bunker buster bombs. And we did so with precision and devastation. They launched 14 missiles, 13 were knocked down. 1 of them was allowed to just fly on by because it was way off target. That's amazing. It's not only a feckless response. All that is, that's a notional response. That's what they'll tell people in Iran, what they'll tell the people on the street through their state-approved, state-run media, is they'll tell them, we lashed out at the American infidel. We struck back with a mighty blow using the hammer of our great army. And it's going to be, anyway, the rest of the world knows, wow, that was a nothing burger. Just so you know, right before the show started too, breaking news on Fox was that gas prices are $7 a barrel lower in price today than they were before. Meaning what? Meaning that the region is not upset. That's a serious indicator. If oil prices didn't spike because of this, it's a serious indicator that there are no concerns about the Straits of Hormuz. There are no concerns about the ability of the oil fields to be spared from attack. There's no real worry about the import-export capabilities of the oil-producing nations in the Middle East. Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. This first dipper I've got, I call it Know the Why. All right, know the why. Why? Don't just look at this past weekend and take it at face value. Don't. You can try that, but if you do, you lose the entire context. It's like somebody having a punchline, but you're not sure what the joke was. You got to know the context in which all of this is happening. And I want to encourage you to dive deep on some of this. Now, let me pull up another article I've got here in my stack. I'll just go ahead and grab it real quick. Here it is. I pulled this off a website called memory.org. It's MEMRI. And that is, help me out, JP. You said it was Middle East media something. You looking it up again? And basically, it's an aggregator of Middle Eastern news.
Middle East Media Research Institute.
Thank you very much. I had the article early this morning that dawned on me. I'm not sure what this site is. I wanted to make sure that I knew whether it was Iranian based or if it was just about Iran. This is a website that specializes in taking news of the Middle East, aggregating it and translating it into English. So it's not like somebody made it up about them. It's their news translated into English so we can read it. So Memory has this piece that came out November 1st, 2023. We're talking just what? A year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half. November 1st, 2023. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, said that death to America is not just a slogan, it's a policy. His quote was this, and I almost don't want to read it because I feel like it gives credibility to him, but it says this: the situation between America and Iran is this: when you chant death to America, it's not just a slogan, it's a policy. This is him saying, I have stated the reasons previously. From the many years in the 1940s to the 70s, that is 30 years, he said, the Americans did everything they could against the Iranian nation, which is crap, by the way. They hit Iran any way they could, which is also crap, by the way. They were one of our great trading partners. They were a military ally. They were somebody we relied on in the Middle East. In fact, when we turned our attention to the Cold War, we had Iran helping us with stability in the Middle East. There was corruption among the Shahs. The people got tired of it, but it was also fomented by radicalism. It wasn't like this was not a despot, but there were also difficulties, and they did not fare well, and the Iranian leadership was overthrown. 1979, me talking now. But he also goes on to say, if it were not for America's support, if it were not for the support of the U.S. weapons, the corrupt and artificial Zionist regime would have been destroyed in the first week. It would have collapsed. The Americans are behind this. Okay. That's the kind of rhetoric that people have lived under now. But that's also the kind of rhetoric that the world has had to take note of. When the guy who is in charge of pursuing the nuclear weapons says it is not just a slogan, it is our policy of death to America, well, then capstone that with the fact that in 2018, footage has resurfaced showing Iranian parliament members chanting the slogan death to America on the floor of their parliament in protest to Trump's decision to pull out of the international nuclear deal. That would be, by the way, that would be the failed nuclear deal that Obama sent pallets of cash over for. I'll talk about more of that in a minute. All right, so understand the why. The why is more than just what happened this weekend. The why is more than just since Trump took office. The why goes bigger than that. Now, I will also tell you this. They've been killing Americans. I said it in my monologue earlier. Aside from the hostages that were taken in 1979, then you have, oh, by the way, just 4 years later, the Beirut barracks bombing, which, oh, by the way, Iran was behind. 241 Marines killed. Then you have, just a few years later, you have the USS Cole being bombed. 17 sailors killed, 40 more wounded. Iran is in all of this, but then you also have, during the war in Iraq, and by the way, I was there, and I know for a fact there was Iranian influence. There was Iranian influence when I was in Afghanistan. The Iranians were all over Herat and the western regions of Afghanistan, but we had some really spooky stuff happening in my region because I lived among the Afghan people up in the northern section at a place called Kunduz, and we had Iranian planes landing during the night sometimes, and we know it. But the truth be told, in Iraq, especially through the use of those explosive, those EFP IEDs, the explosive force projectiles, like a cannon buried in the dirt that would blow through an armored vehicle. That was an Iranian invention that was then trained for the militias. When we fought in 2004, when I was there with the Mahdi militia, the Shia uprising centered in Sadr City, which is a section of Baghdad, but all over the area, but really hunkered down in Sadr City. When we dealt with it, we dealt with EFPs that were from Iran. We also dealt with, when we couldn't catch Muqtada al-Sadr, the leader of the Mahdi militia, guess where he was? He was in Iran. We right now have official records that say 603 U.S. service members died because of Iranian influence in Iraq. 603. The actual numbers are believed to exceed 1,000. Just this morning, I listened to General Jack Keane giving some commentary on Fox, and he said that Lloyd Austin, who he's known, former Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he's known Lloyd Austin for many years. He said he and Lloyd Austin were talking one day, and he said, what's the number? And he said, I believe it's actually in excess of 2,000. In excess of 2,000 American troops who died at the hands of Iranian influence. That's approaching the levels of 9/11 at that point. So what we're looking at here is know the why. The why is this is a country that says, by their own words, death to America is their policy, not just a slogan. This is a country that has been killing, maiming, and capturing U.S. interests for over 40 years. That's what they do. But then let's talk about, after the break, the spiritual aspect here, because this is what makes it an unhinged moment. This is what makes it harder to pin down. This is why they are so hard to predict, because there's an entirely different context here. These are not rational people. I'll explain it more when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Text it in. Give me your feedback on where we're headed right now. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Same number for, well, no, you can't call it. We're going to get that figured out. I'm beyond it. There's a phone company that is about to have to answer to lawyer Phil if they don't straighten things out here pretty quick. But nonetheless, you can text it. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. So I said during my monologue, if you didn't catch it, I encourage you to check it out, because there are a number of things that are factors in the why. When it comes to Iran, it's like you're having those water cooler conversations, right? You're at work and someone says, "Man, see the news?" "Yeah, but what do you think about that?" "Well, I don't know. I don't like it. I mean, do we really need to be doing that kind of thing?" Well, okay. Do you know the why? Because a whole lot more to the why than just what's in the headlines this past week. There's a whole lot more to the why than just Israel and Iran started bombing each other just like in the past 10 days. There's a whole lot more to the why. I mentioned a moment ago about the official policy, stated policy of the leadership of Iran is death to America. They say it's not a slogan. They say it's their policy. Quote from their Ayatollah supreme leader. I told you a moment ago that what we're watching is history. Look at the history from the time they were founded as a nation. The Islamic Republic of Iran has been anti-American, and not just anti-American, because I could care less if somebody doesn't like us. But when they start acting on it, it's a problem. We're talking about 52 Americans taken hostage inside of our own embassy within months of the Ayatollah taking power. We're talking about U.S. service members being killed. But then there's also this. This is the piece that's going to make you a genius when you're having conversations around the table at lunch with your friends. This is the one they're going to look at you and go, "Where'd you hear that from?" And you say, "Well, I just study up on this kind of stuff." I'm giving it to you. You ready? Here we go. I got a piece here that I pulled off premierchristianity.com. It's just one source. You can find the same thing. I pulled this because it was only published in the last few days, but it's something that I was already aware of, and I went out and tried to find the best source I could. Few Westerners really understand the theology that drives the leadership of the radical government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. They are a faction of Shiite Islam. Now, in the world of Islam, Shias and Sunnis are the two greatest factions, kind of like Catholics and Protestants, I guess, if you will. I mean, they're not the same, but you know what I mean. There's a different versions of Islam. They base theirs around, who has the right to rule in the Islamic faith. And I won't try to oversimplify it too much. Just suffice to say, they have some originalist differences as to what constitutes the leadership of their faith. Shia Islam is the minority on the world stage. Saudi Arabia is a largely Sunni Islam. Iraq is mostly Sunni. Shias are there, but then the Shia hub, if you will, has been Iran. And a faction of the Shia sect of Islam has been the leadership of Iran. And they are a group that can be referred to as the Twelvers. They are a group that believes that there is a holy figure called the 12th Imam who will reappear to bring peace to the world. Okay, sounds great, right? However, they also believe that it is their job to usher in a time of great catastrophe, a time of great destruction. They believe that it is their job to foment the terror that they are doing, not just so that they can be powerful on the world stage, but they're also doing it because they believe that's what brings their Mahdi, they call him, the Mahdi, back. The 12th Imam will reappear to reestablish order once they have created the disorder that ushers him back in. In essence, what they're saying is the actions of man drive God. It's bigger than like prayers. They believe that they will actually set the stage and usher him in if they can just make that much more chaos. They're only 10 to 15% of the Muslim world overall, Shias. But the Twelvers, they are a strong sect in the leadership of Iran. The former president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, was an absolute Twelver. Iran's present-day nuclear doctrines, say the article I've got here in my hand, they meet Iran's ancient theological doctrines. If they can have radical scholars teaching that apocalyptic war is a necessary requirement for the Mahdi to be revealed, then it justifies their need for the nuclear weapons. Iran's struggle is this part of the divine plan, they say. I mean, think about the Cold War with Soviet Union. We had this thing called mutually assured destruction. Both sides had détente. They would stare at each other. It'd be like a staring session. Who's going to blink first? But neither one of us really want to pull the trigger because we know what it means. At the same time, the Iranian leadership, the 12ers, they know what it means. And they know what it means and they want it. And they want it for that very purpose. They want it for the destruction that it causes. They want it for the mutually assured destruction because they believe that it will usher in the day of the Mahdi. And these Iranian apocalyptic clerics, man, they got some powerful incentive now to pull this nuclear trigger because it's a fulfillment of ancient prophecy for them. And you look at it and go, do they really believe that? Yes, they really believe that. They really do. So when you're having those water cooler conversations, and I'm telling you, know the why. If you know the why, if you know the history, if you know the politics, and you know their religious background on this, you've got an entirely different view. It's a whole lot bigger than just, well, Israel started shooting and Iran started shooting, and I don't know why we're in the middle of it. Well, by God, wake up and see the whole picture. Know the why. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all are talking about this show goes like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to the loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we now call once again Fort Benning. Benning. I was there this weekend. Benning. And then big old patches in North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Then there's a ton of y'all that tune in daily and live stream the show on places like YouTube and our website, rightside.media.org, X, Rumble, Facebook, all of it. We appreciate you. And then all you podcasters who catch it after the fact, love y'all too. Thank you so much, all of you, for making this audience what it is, or make the show what it is. You're an amazing audience. I got a couple more pieces of this Know the Why, and I'm going to wrap this up. All right, so when you were sitting, when you're sitting around with your friends and they're like, I don't know, man, what do you think about this? Why are we doing this? What happened? Why did they get to this point? How did we get here? Okay, I gave you the history. I gave you the theology, and I gave you the politics. Now look at this. Now let's look at crazy efforts by the Democrats in U.S. foreign policy. Did I just go there? Yes, I did. Let's start with Hillary Clinton. Oh, Lord, Phil, are you going to talk about Hillary Clinton? I am. So I won't go into all the details. Some of y'all remember this better than I will, I'm sure. But there's a scandal that never, in my opinion, got fully resolved. And I don't know why. But Uranium One is the name of a company. That's the company, Uranium One. Uranium One was a company that mined uranium. And there are certain things that when they reach the level of international business, the State Department has to approve them. Things like, you remember the Keystone Pipeline going across Canadian lines and the ability for oil to be transferred, all the way down to our Gulf ports. The reason why they got held up so long is because Hillary Clinton, being Secretary of State, jammed it up. So there are things that are required to be approved by the State Department. Now, the administration technically weighs in, but the stamp, if you will, on the piece of paper has to come from the State Department. Then there's Uranium One. Uranium One in 2013. Oh boy, think back, 12 years ago. 12 years ago, the company of Uranium One, I got a piece here from the Federalist that I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Russia's state uranium monopoly called Rosatom, that's the Russian company, tried to purchase a Canadian mining company called Uranium One. Uranium One owns a controlling interest in other global uranium companies. And the end result of this is it would have an impact on uranium stores that are mined for the United States. This made no sense. Why are we allowing Russia to buy up what is technically something that is very sensitive and to the U.S. interest? Well, there's a whole lot of hundreds of millions of dollars that flooded into the Hillary and Bill Clinton Foundation soon thereafter, from Russian companies too, by the way. Lots of reasons to believe there was a little pay for play. But the bottom line is Uranium One was sold. Russia got 20% of the company, and then a whole bunch of what's known as yellow cake disappeared. It is strongly believed that yellow cake, which is supposed to be tightly controlled, that yellow cake somehow made its way into Canada without an export license attached to it, and then, oh, by the way, disappeared from there. Some believe that Iran got its kickoff for its nuclear ambitions using uranium and yellow cake that came from the sale to Rosatom of Uranium One. Hillary Clinton, thank you very much. Then why don't we just talk about Obama? Oh, we're doing the whole rogues gallery today. Yes, we are. Piece here from September of 2016. So that was 2013. Now we're at 2016. The Obama administration acknowledged that it transferred $1.7 billion in cash. Remember this? Pallets of cash. The Obama administration so badly wanted to say that they had entered into a nuclear agreement with Tehran. Well, how did that work out? Not too well. So an initial pallet of cash. We're talking about American bucks stacked up. Have you ever seen pallets of cash? It's like something out of a movie. but pallets of cash were delivered to Tehran, $400 million to try and get back 4 American prisoners. Oh, that's right. Iran was holding Americans prisoner, and they sold them back to us. And the Obama administration agreed to pay a healthy ransom of $400 million in the first tranche, and then settled out in full by sending pallets that totaled $1.7 billion. Oh, by the way, that was something that the Obama administration admitted. I'm not making it up. There's no conspiracy theory. It happened. So now you have the Iranian 1 scandal with Hillary Clinton, followed by the $1.7 billion scandal under Obama. And then you get to Biden. Oh, boy. The Biden administration has to be one of the biggest debacles to ever hit the world of politics. But the Biden administration, October of 2023, this would be, oh, by the way, just months after the story I told you about earlier, where the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, said that death to America is their policy. The Biden administration, in an effort to try and recoup the failed nuclear agreement that Obama had put in place, agreed to unfreeze $6 billion of frozen Iranian assets in order to get 6 American citizens out of Iranian custody. Hang on. 6 American citizens are still being held? Yes, they were holding more prisoners. Americans. And oh, by the way, Biden was willing to pay $1 billion each. He basically gave them what they needed to fund their nuclear program. He basically gave them what they needed to either fund terrorism, fund their nuclear program, or just build another palace for the Ayatollah. I don't know. But the result is money's fungible. $6 billion. Between Obama and Biden, $7.7 billion handed to them. On top of that, you had the Iranian 1 scandal. Listen, Democrats have been making an absolute debacle of dealing with Iran for a long time. Got a few text messages, and I'll go to the break. Matt from Athens says, hey, thank you so much for being right and simply for saying nuclear instead of nuclear. I am proud to serve, and I'm glad that my diction is appropriate. Thank you, Matt. Bill from North Alabama says, yes, Iranian EFPs killed friends of mine. He said Arsaf also killed Iranians. That's Army Special Operations Forces. Also killed Iranians fighting us in Afghanistan. Bill from North Alabama. Thanks for your service, man. Appreciate you. I got a brand new texter. Tell us where you're from and what your name is. Iran would make a great parking lot. Okay, listen, I think we're about done there. I don't think Iran's going to do much more militarily. In fact, it's not in their interest. They can't. There's nothing they can do, with the exception of terror. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Morgan B checking in from South Georgia. Morgan B says, what's the deal with the Crown Prince addressing the people and essentially saying the Iranian people have been held hostage by the regime? Real question. What's his role? Why haven't they sought help for freedom from this regime yet? Okay, so Morgan B, you're talking about Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. He is the exiled son of the Shah who was deposed in 1979. And I believe he's living in the United States. I'm not positive. But when he says the Crown Prince, he's in exile. He's not in their country right now. He is like a government in exile, hoping to be a part of the solution if they can ever get rid of the Ayatollahs. No guarantee that he will. The people of Iran need to choose that. Do they want a royal family, or do they want some other means of governance? I don't know. I hope it's their choice. But the reality is, the Crown Prince addressing the people, he's telling them, basically, rise up. Now's the time. He, by the way, has said that his inside sources are telling him that the Ayatollah's control is shakier than it's ever been. And he does point out the Iranian people have been held hostage by the regime for years. So there's Morgan B. I hope I explained it to you, but yes, there is indeed a government in waiting. It's a government in exile, and the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi is the son, I believe, of the deposed Shah of Iran. That new texter, by the way, is Michael from Elgin. Glad you're there. And then Chef Ben checking in. Chef Ben from Adiana. Say, guys, great show. Did you hear about Trump's new golf course he's building in Iran? He's already got the first 3 holes. Oh my gosh. There it is. First sound effect of the day. All right, tell you what, take me to a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so you got details today about the why behind going on with Iran and everything else. And I'll go ahead and just clarify once again for the record. I thought this weekend was amazing. I hope it stops there. I have no desire to see boots on the ground. I don't. Now, if Iran actually strikes and targets an American interest with any kind of destruction, then all bets are off at that point. But they would have been off anyway. I mean, it's not like it. The end result is if Iran actually does something that takes out American lives, then I'm afraid that we'll have more to do, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know for a fact what the bomb damage assessment is fully on the Fordo or Isfahan or Natanz sites that we bombed. But the indications are they are largely inoperable. I can't say that they are fully destroyed. And I don't know if that means they can put them back online without too much trouble. I mean, listen, one of them was supposedly a quarter mile deep in the ground. I think that was Fordo, quarter mile deep in the ground. But these bunker buster bombs, these mops that they dropped, massive ordnance penetrators, they were pretty crazy cool. What you got?
Well, something that I haven't seen people talk about though that concerns me absolutely, the facilities I believe were, if they're not completely decimated, at least they're not going to be used anytime soon. But I mean, we've got the U.S. and Israel both talking about how 400 kilograms of enriched uranium they took out of the facilities before they were destroyed. So
Who's reporting that?
Are they? I mean, I've just seen the U.S. and I don't know the exact, but I've seen it everywhere. The U.S. and Israel both say like their satellite images of trucks leaving the facility, Fordo facility, I think. So I believe the uranium was not there, or at least a lot of it wasn't there. So I mean, what's the possibility that they can? Oh, okay. Well, you guys beat us, and then just secretly build another facility, start back enriching. I don't know. I think that aspect, worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it's all plug and play. I don't think they can just take it, drop it back into a new centrifuge, and then make more of it. But I think they could definitely use it for dirty bombs, and that would be a serious concern. So so I haven't seen that. So you're saying there's an actual news site, or is that just like social media discussion?
It's not social media. It's social media talking about officials who have said it. I can pull up the official stuff to show you, but listen, there was all that talk too last week about China flying these strange cargo flights in and out that some believe might have been. I think the more likely scenario there was China actually helping the Ayatollahs get some of their wealth and treasure out of the country, as opposed to uranium. We actually have ways of tracking from satellite the heat signatures of the uranium. So I have a feeling they're going to find whatever may have moved out in trucks, but it doesn't mean that there's not still out there. What are you saying? I'm still looking.
Okay. That being said, I tell you what, let me get two text messages. John from Lexington, South Carolina says Obama also ended Operation Cassandra, a major drug investigation to aid Iran. There you go. And then a brand new texter checking in today. Tell us who you are and where you're from, but just said, great job, JP, enjoyed it. And there's apparently a video attached that I can't open because I'm on the air. But anyway, thank you for joining the show. Tell us who you are and where you're from. So let's talk about something else. Keeping your head on a swivel. What does that mean? That means head up, being aware of your surroundings. Do not allow yourself to be the casual victim who is targeted because you're not paying attention. You see something, you say something. You keep your head up and on a swivel, meaning you're looking around and being aware of your surroundings. It doesn't mean you tiptoe, you're not walking on eggshells, but it does mean that you're not allowing yourself to just be lulled into a sense of complacency. And the analogy that I always give is what I, taught my kids. And I remember my daughter going off to school and me saying things to her like, when you're walking out of Walmart in a dark parking lot, do not have your head in your phone. Have your head up, look around before you even walk the parking lot, scan it first. Criminals watch for people who are not paying attention. It's just make yourself a harder target. Part of that is awareness. Well, right now, I think that the world has to keep its head on a swivel because while I don't believe that Iran has a great deal of nuclear capability, and they certainly have no conventional ability, I mean, Iran is a hollow shell right now when it comes to military capabilities. They can't even defend their own territory, much less have any expeditionary capability. So I don't think that we're going to see any Iranian true military, exporting of violence. What I do think we have to watch for is the ability of Iran and the desire of Iran to foment terror. Why? Because they have a history of it. I'll come back to that in a minute. The question that we have to ask, first of all, is what about here in the homeland? Keep in mind, it only took a small group of radicals to do 9/11, and they were here in our country. They didn't launch the planes from somewhere else and fly it in. They got on flights right here in the United States and then took over the planes and did what they did. That was after they got trained, at flight schools here in the United States to actually fly the planes. So many questions should have been asked back then too. Like, why did they get on the plane with no luggage? Why did they go to flight school and not care about the part that talked about landing? They just wanted to fly. But right now, one of the things that I think is causing a lot of people some concern, and I'm so glad that we have a different leadership at the FBI right now. Between the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the ability of the Trump administration to lead, guide, and direct in national security efforts, Department of Homeland Security, we're watching an entirely different day. I cannot imagine what it would be like if Biden's team was still in office. But I got a piece here from Town Hall. Headline: an alarming number of Iranian nationals were released into the U.S. under Biden. Oh, yeah. There is actually supposed to be, because of where they're from, there are enhanced vetting procedures that are supposed to be taking place on people that come from certain countries, one of which is Iran. Why would you not? They sing death to America, and then they sneak across the border. It's not like they applied for a visa. I mean, you're talking about people who are sneaking across the border whose home country is the country that says, as a matter of policy, they want death to America. But according to senior Customs and Border Protection sources, say townhall.com, a significant number of Iranian nationals entered the U.S. during former President Joe Biden's time in office, raising serious national concerns, security concerns. Between fiscal years 2021 and 2024, a total of 1,500 Iranian nationals were caught crossing the U.S. border. What did it take for 9/11? 14? Yeah, I think it was like 14 terrorists that or maybe it was 11.
I believe something like that.
It was a small group. You have 1,504 Iranian nationals caught crossing the U.S. border illegally. Of those, 729, nearly 48%, were just released into the country. Awesome. The yearly breakdown shows 48 crossings in 21, 197 in 22, on and on from there. Border czar Tom Homan warned the open border under Biden was the greatest national security threat in U.S. history, and he cited the over 1,200 Iranian nationals compared to 0 under Trump. The Biden administration has withheld information on how many Iranian nationals it let into the country that were on the terror watch list. So first thing I would say is, keeping your head on a swivel, take a look at the fact that we have a huge number of Iranian nationals who were sneaking into our country, over half of which were just released to come on in. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. solid conservative, and just plain right. So I'm in number 2 of the Triple Dipper, head on a swivel. Head on a swivel. All right, so right now we know for a fact that the Biden administration, in the millions of illegals they just allowed to wander into our country, just unfettered. Just, hey, everybody come on in. We got free stuff. The millions that came in, we know that at least there were 1,500 Iranians that were intercepted. All right, first of all, why is there an Iranian sneaking across the southern border? You look at it and think, okay, you couldn't find your way to Europe. You decided to come all the way to America. You came through like Mexico so you could just cross the Rio Grande. Apparently, 1,500 of them. Of those, 729 were released into the country. So apparently half of them were caught, sent back. What we also know, though, is there were hundreds of others on the terror watch list in general who were a real problem. And they're just allowed in. Okay, why is that okay? Well, now what we're looking at is, I got a piece here from News Nation. News Nation, major U.S. cities on high alert after U.S. strikes Iran. So major cities across the United States, it says, are on heightened security. The New York Police Department, the nation's largest municipal police force, issued security advisories, increased patrols around religious, cultural, and diplomatic sites on Saturday. You got others around the nation doing likewise. But police departments in smaller cities, even across the country, are also increasing security measures. Law enforcement expressed concern about possible soft targets like churches, synagogues, and tourist attractions. I would go ahead and add shopping malls. Thankfully, schools are not in session right now. College campuses. Just think about it. Sporting events. So the end result is, part of the time that we're in right now, I don't think for a second that Iran is going to have the ability to have much more than a notional military strike against any hard targets. They tried today. They sent 14 missiles across the straits into Qatar at our Air Force base. Every single one of them was nullified. And that's it. 14. It was notional. It was more like a so they can say they did kind of thing. The place where I think we have the most potential for threat, for danger, if you will, is in what could happen with small groups of sleeper cells. So yes, what I'm saying there is keep your head on a swivel. Now, part of that's to travel. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump in too on this and say, JP, so I don't know how this happens, but somehow or another, JP is getting a week off.
Well, 3 days off.
Who's the boss around here? I don't understand. I want to talk to him. But you're about to make an international trip, dude.
Oh yeah, we're going to Europe next week.
So you don't have to tell whatever details you want, but nonetheless, you guys are traveling. So let me ask you this. This is a family trip. I know the whole fam's going, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Is this something y'all have talked about since all this happened?
Yeah, we've actually done. What's the name of the app? They're like, there's like a specific government app for travelers for stuff like this. I can't remember the name of it. It's some
YouTube?
acronym. No, it's some acronym like Swift, I think, or something
Uber?
like that. No, not that way. But yeah, we've been tracking and staying up to date. I mean, we're only going to be in Europe. However, the amount of migration into Europe, it's a lot of Europe is not safe from stuff like this. Probably, I mean. Obviously, the U.S. had wide open borders, but Europe has been importing across the board a lot of, illegal immigration like this. So we have been aware this could be a problem, unfortunately. But hey, head on a swivel, like you said. It's just important to stay aware of your surroundings and stuff like this. But it's unfortunate you got to worry about that. But it's just the world we live in.
All right. Well, your family's my family, so I think about it, and pray about it. But let me ask you this: have y'all changed your plans at all?
No. We have not changed our plans.
By God,
No.
Not gonna change plans.
No, that would be giving them what they want.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But yet head on a swivel, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're not changing anything about what we're doing.
Are any of the places you're going? Do they have a heightened threat alert?
So we're going to Paris, and then the only two countries we're going to be in is France and Italy. I think the Paris threat was raised from a 1 to a 2, so marginally
on a scale of what, 3?
10, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's still pretty marginal, just slightly raised, I think, from the isolated terrorist threat. But no, I think the places itself we're going to be in, I don't think it's going to be, horribly unsafe. We're not going to be going to Tehran,
Yeah.
but like I said, there's no telling what terrorists have made their way into Europe and the U.S. So I think that's just mainly where the threat lies.
The State Department has put several countries on a don't go there list right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of you look at it and go, like Mozambique. I mean, is that a big tourist attraction? I don't
It's
know.
like, oh, so now, okay, I need to be told not to go to Tehran. Got it. Okay. Now I know it's unsafe.
That was kind of a given.
You tell me I shouldn't be going to Lebanon right now? Why? Like,
Bad place to be. Hanging out at the beach on the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
Not a good plan. But yeah, okay. So y'all leave out this weekend.
Yeah.
Just so the audience is aware, Butters will be sitting in, just so as you know. But wait a minute. You're not going to be here for 4th of July.
Nope.
Is anybody over there going to celebrate for fireworks?
I don't know. I actually thought about that the other day. It's like, it's kind of funny we're going out of the country for 4th of July, but we'll still celebrate amongst ourselves, I guess.
Wait a minute. You did tell me you're going to Normandy, though.
We are. Yep. We're going to Normandy.
Okay.
Normandy's getting a whole day to itself. So.
I now have travel jealousy.
Yeah.
That's a bucket list item for me is go to Normandy.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see Normandy.
All right. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
You're traveling abroad, and you are traveling abroad.
Mm-hmm.
There are always going to be safety measures you can put in place for traveling abroad. I'll never forget, I had a friend of mine. Apparently, you're not supposed to make copies of your passport. It's like it's one of those documents you're not supposed to make copies of. He did anyway. He said he was basically told, if someone steals your passport, you better have proof of who you are. So he made a copy and pasted it to the inside of his Bible. So it was in the back of his Bible.
Nice.
So he could get to it.
Yeah.
He also heard that like pickpockets are rampant in Europe. So he did things like he had his main, like his wallet that he was going to carry that he needed with like, he slimmed down to where he just had like his insurance card, his picture ID and his credit card. And he put that in his front pocket with a rubber band around it because the rubber band makes it harder to drag out of your pocket when the pickpockets try to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you carry the fake wallet. So he had the fake wallet in his back pocket. So if somebody, and he had like $20 in it. And so if you get mugged and they say, give me your wallet, you give them the fake wallet and they're satisfied because they got something and they don't know that you have the real wallet thin in your pocket.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I remember all this stuff. This guy, by the way, this friend of mine is the kind of guy who probably researched this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like
that
to the nth degree. But he's been living in Europe now for a number of years. That being said, there's also stuff like, all right, traveling abroad, knowing where the consulates, not just the embassies, but the consulates are, because consulates are like mini embassies, and it's a safety zone. So knowing where, and then even if you're not close to a U.S. consulate, there might be a friendly consulate somewhere nearby. So those kind of things happen in travel. What else? Y'all talk about anything else on this?
Well, you mentioned the pickpocketing thing. It's actually Granny Ram is the one, my grandmother, the one who wanted to get, she said that when she took her trip overseas, she had the stuff to keep around your neck, like a big necklace with all your stuff, so it's not in your pockets. So I don't know if I'll be wearing that, but that they'll be with us. So yeah, that we've taken account of that for the pickpocketing stuff. But yeah, I think we'll be aware the whole time of local embassies or whatever. And it's unfortunate, like I said, that you have to worry about that going to France and Italy about Muslim terrorist threats there. But like I said, I think that's just where we are. We'll be aware, but also not going to let it ruin our time either.
Nope. And I think that's part of the point. You said it a moment ago. If you let them put fear out there and stop your plans, they've already won.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, blessings on your trip. Is it too late to cancel that? Okay.
I will say I'm not looking forward to an 8-hour flight from Chicago to Paris, because I hate flying and I hate being stuck in a little tube in the air for 8 hours. But also during the flight is a massive UFC fight. One of my favorite fighters is fighting. So I'm going to have to hope the plane has Wi-Fi so I can watch that on the way over.
Of course, you could fly in a B-2 stealth bomber for 37 hours.
Yeah, that's true. I don't like being in the air for that long. I'm with a bunch of strangers. So this will be the longest flight I've ever been on. But that's the only part I'm not looking for.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. All right, take it to a break, JP. We'll run back and we'll come back and we'll talk about a little bit more on that one. Keep your head on a swivel. And then finishing out the show today with Democrats being on the wrong side of everything. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Piece here from the New York Post. Talk about keeping your head on a swivel. Yes, aside from the fact that we have to be aware of the fact that millions came across our border, of which some could be expected to have been bad actors, right? 729, I think it was, Iranians caught sneaking across the border were released into the interior of the U.S. nonetheless. Why? Why are they here? What? I mean, anyway, how'd they get here too, by the way? Iran is a semi-closed environment. Now you can travel to and from, but it is not as open as, like it's not like you're just like, hey, I feel like going on vacation. Why don't we go to Iran? You just don't walk in the door, and you don't walk out that easily too, especially if you're trying to escape the country. They watch for that. So why? All right. So then there's the other piece of this. Major U.S. cities on high alert. Already told you about that. And now there's this one. New York Post, U.S. bases on high alert for possible retaliation. So we just saw it today. Yes, there were 14 missiles launched at our air base in Qatar. Ineffective, feckless, flaccid, if you will. However, it's also worthy of note that the Iranians themselves who launched the missiles actually contacted the United States and the nation of Qatar and said, hey, by the way, we're launching some missiles. Just make sure you guys know. It's just, we got to do this. You know the deal. We got to do it. Who does that? Well, when you're a nation that is trying to save face on the world stage. Anyway, New York Post says U.S. has several bases and military assets in the Middle East that Iran could target in retaliation. Al Udeid Air Base is the one they launched at today. It's in Qatar. The U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters is in Bahrain, critical asset in the Persian Gulf. Al Assad Air Base is in Iraq. Iran targeted in 2020. Harir Air Base is in Erbil, Iraq. Al-Tanf Garrison is a U.S. military base in southern Syria, near the border of Iraq and Jordan. Ali Al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait. Al-Dhafra is in the UAE. These are just several of the bases where we have over 40,000 active duty troops. So yes, indeed, there are locations well within range of Iranian missiles. Will they do it? I'm going to predict that for the time being, Iran is done. The question is, will they begin to actually negotiate in good faith? I don't think anything can be done in good faith with them. Nothing. I don't think Iran has good faith in mind for anything. However, I think they will probably negotiate for self-preservation. So what we're going to watch right now in the coming days is whether or not Iran is ready to negotiate for self-preservation. To me, the biggest potential for lashing out is going to wind up being what Iran could do with terror. JP just pointed out a while ago the story that multiple trucks were seen leaving. Was it Natanz? Was it Isfahan? Where Fordo? Which one was it?
It was Fordo.
Fordo was the storage site, wasn't it?
I believe, yes. And there's apparently 2 Israeli officials and 1 U.S. official told the New York Times that, yes, they left and they don't know where they are. They being the 400-something kilograms of the 60% enriched uranium. So the uranium potentially looks like it's still out there, which I think I told you off air. It's like worries me. It's like obviously destroying the facilities is good, but it's like, all right, if the uranium's still out there, what are they going to do with that? You know? So
yeah. Well, especially when they've been the chief exporter of terror in the world for 4 decades.
And part of me, I guess the cynical part of me is I wonder if they still have the uranium and Iran's trying to play coy a little bit of putting it down the road and maybe having a look of a surrender, but then God forbid they do something with their uranium, have like a dirty bomb or something and come back and surprise people. That's the part that worries me of like, if the uranium's still out there, that's what concerns me.
That's not cynical. That's wisdom.
Yeah.
And by the way, that all the things I said earlier in the show, everything leads up to the fact that they are the kind of nations that you have to look at them that way.
Yeah.
They've actually proved that they are the kind of nation that does the things that you're describing. I got one more dipper in this show coming up here in a moment. I'll get to it, but let me get some text lines first. Penny from Athens sent me a meme that says the whole world quickly realized America is no longer being run by men in dresses. What sound effect do you have for Penny? Because that one was worthy. That's just, that'll work. Oh, you're trying to rack up points at the very end here. Thank you, Penny. Appreciate you. Lewis from Trinity says, I was in Paris in 2016 with my family. The police there do not mess around. They carry fully automatic weapons. Also, when we were on the subway, the women would stand behind us. The men would stand in front. Keep the women close to the wall where no one can get towards them. Be aware of people carrying clipboards, waiting to ask questions. That's the setup for a pickpocket. You hearing this? Are you taking notes?
I'm hearing
Pay attention.
mental notes.
That's Lewis from Trinity talking to you. All right, good enough. Stephen from Athens says, JP, have you looked at these? And he sends you a link to, pickpocket-proof adventure travel pants. Hey, I've seen those.
I haven't.
I have actually coveted those. I think they're pretty cool. This is not Temu. This is real. These are real. They call them the most pickpocket-proof pants in the world. I've seen that.
That's wow, interesting. No, I have not seen those.
Are you looking at it?
I'm looking at them. Yeah,
and they come in a variety of colors, and they make you look slim.
They got 25% off cyber sale right now.
I'm just saying,
just in time.
There's still time. Tony from Piedmont says, how many years have passed since then? Wait. Back up. Would you not say the original bunker buster was in 91 and they were babies in Kuwait and Iraq? I suggest that the Moab dropped on a mountain eastern Afghanistan for Osama bin Laden has impregnated the babies. What a weird text, Tony. I don't know how to go down this road with you. That is just like you're got too many strange analogies all blended together into that one. But yeah, the Moab, the mother of all bombs, dropped in Iraq, in Afghanistan. It was something. It was an airburst, though. The Moab is an airburst. The GBU-57, the bunker buster, otherwise known as the MOP, which is a massive ordnance penetrator, it can actually blast 200 feet into the ground before the secondary explosion goes off, going even deeper and wider. It's devastating. The technology is unbelievable. All right, we're taking a break. We're coming right back. Wrong side of everything. I mean, like everything. Y'all text it in, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show. I mean, it goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we call Fort Benning. Fort Benning was there last weekend. And oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Then there's all of y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, watching us every day on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, on Facebook, on our website, rightsidemedia.org. Thank you very much. And then you podcasters, we appreciate you too. Thank you all for this audience being so much a part of our lives. Bottom line is, this show doesn't work if y'all aren't there. So thank you very much. So we spent the entire show talking about what I believe is one of the biggest news stories of the decade, really. It's one of the biggest. The bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities is something that has been in the works since 1979. But they didn't have nukes back then. No, but they were initiating every effort they could to be everything that we know them to be. All right. This bombing that took place this past weekend, it actually has the ability to reshape events in the Middle East. Had it not happened, it would have shaped events in the Middle East. Things like the Abraham Accords could go away or happen. Things like, the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas being either empowered or disempowered. Things like, by the way, Saudi Arabia now not focusing on getting its own nuke and creating a Middle Eastern arms race that would destabilize the region. Oil prices, international trade. What does Europe do with interaction with all of it? So all said and done, this past weekend was one of those news stories that has profound impacts of which we will not even know the full result until years have gone by. I do believe that history is going to look back on this past weekend and call that one of the defining moments of our time. And I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to use hyperbole or try to jack things up into a category it doesn't belong in. I'm not raising this into a different tax bracket just by verbiage. I'm literally telling you, this is a huge story. That being said, Democrats amaze me. I don't care if you like Trump. You cannot like the enemies of our nation and still not like Trump. But when you side with the enemies of our nation over the duly elected president of the United States, I got to question your motives just a little bit. And I'm not even talking about disagreeing with what he did or when he did it. I'm talking about the actual excoriation of anything this administration does, to the point that it makes no sense anymore. Like, think about this. Let this sink in for a minute. This guy, Khalil, the Colombian activist Palestinian who was arrested and they attempted to deport him, and the courts have now set him free. He's now walking the streets again. Guess who escorted him in on the airport? AOC. So while Trump is bombing in the Middle East to preserve American interests, AOC, a member of Congress, thinks it's a great idea to escort old boy in and make it out to be a championship day. You about to add?
He was out protesting this weekend, by the way.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw that.
That's absolutely. Would I expect any less? Democrats are so on the wrong side of everything. They are completely out of touch. Is this a political statement? Yeah, it is. But listen, I'll call a spade a spade. I'll tell you when I think Republicans are jacked up too, because there are times when they are, especially in state government. I've called it out many times. But in reality, what we're watching right now is Trump derangement syndrome is like just real. I got to read you something. The lovely Charlene brought this into my attention. A guy I'm not super familiar with. His name's Dan Turrentine. Dan Turrentine is a Democrat strategist, and he put this on his X page just over the weekend. In fact, he put it up there yesterday, Sunday. And I'm going to read this whole thing to you because it's so good. He said, it was too depressing to write this last night, meaning Sunday, talking about Saturday. He said, it was too depressing to write this last night after we got off the air, so I went to bed. So it needs to be said by more Democrats. He's a Democrat. He said, this was not an impeachable offense. Trump did not need congressional approval for one precision attack under the circumstances, just as Obama did not when striking bin Laden. Why can't our party just say, it's great, we achieved the objective and we destroyed Iran's nuclear sites. God bless the soldiers who carried it out and made it home safely. God bless our country, military allies, and we look forward to the full intel briefing. He said, if one must then assert congressional authority at the moment, add that the escalation would require congressional approval. And if you must, express concern for where this may go and what might come next. But for so many in my party, Democrats, to knee-jerk with unhinged calls for impeachment and sadly omit in their statement support for Iran not having nuclear weapons, which has been our principal of our party for 40 years, is truly TDS. That's a Democrat strategist saying, would y'all just please stop? Please. He said, if you want to express your concerns, do it. If you want to ask for congressional approval for anything else, do it. But don't jump out there and say this is impeachable because you know it's not. You're just trying to be on the wrong side of everything. New York Post has a piece. New York Post, AOC again. AOC and furious Dems call for Trump to be impeached over the Iran strikes. Yeah, so Progressive Squad I don't know that AOC could find her way through, a minefield with a map. I mean, she can't. She doesn't know how to avoid stepping on the mines. She just does it. It's like a self-inflicted wound every time you turn. She's a gift that keeps on giving. In fact, I'll just say this. I wish she and Jasmine Crockett would speak up more. Can I say that? I just did. I wish upon a star that Jasmine Crockett and AOC would continue going afar. They would just speak to us on a daily basis. Please, it's a gift that keeps on giving. You give us more ammunition for political commercials than anybody else. Progressive Squad Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Never trust the hyphenated name, JP. Just
Never.
saying.
Never, ever.
When the day comes and God puts in your life the person who you will marry, do not allow them to go hyphenated. Just saying.
I wouldn't do it.
Okay. Blasted Trump's move to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran as unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional. She's an idiot. This is what happens when a barista with no world experience and never led a thing in her life steps into office and is then suddenly given a microphone and an opportunity to be the one. You got folks in both parties that are calling for constitutional review on all of it. Go ahead, but it's not impeachable. It's not going to be. It never was. It never will be. Senator Bernie Sanders, who's, by the way, never been right on anything, admonished Trump strikes as grossly unconstitutional. That's the same guy, by the way, self-avowed socialist who did his honeymoon in the Soviet Union. Just saying. He said the only entity could take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. Well, we're not at war. Just so you know, it's called a military strike. It's under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. This is not a part of the War Powers Act because he's not going to war. And by the way, where were they when Obama struck bin Laden? They were nowhere to be found, were they? So Fox News has a piece by Alex Miller, headline, Trump doesn't need permission from Congress to strike Iran. And it's true. So as you're having those water cooler conversations with your friends and they say, I don't know, man, I heard somebody say, there's Republicans. Thomas Massie, I like him usually. And he was saying maybe it's unconstitutional. Well, how about this? Go ahead and just sling this at them. You ready? The argument on the Hill is that the entire point of supporting Israel is to prevent the Islamic Republic from acquiring or creating nuclear weapons. Yes. The other question, though, is did we have the right under what is known as an authorization for use of military force? An AUMF, an authorization for use of military force. Arguably, we do. John Yoo, who's a legal scholar, a former U.S. attorney, he told Fox News Digital, as a legal matter, the president does not need the permission of Congress to engage in hostilities abroad, but as a political matter, it's important to go to Congress and present a united front. That's why when you saw the bigger picture, like the invasion of Afghanistan or the invasion of Iraq, regardless of whether you like them or not, they were big, large-scale movements. And they became something that President George W. Bush went before Congress and said, I want authority to do this. And they agreed with him. It's like the biggest CYA in the world. You can say what you want about Bush, but he had congressional approval. Likewise, or not likewise, but by comparison, you had Reagan invaded Grenada to rescue Americans who were there. He did not seek congressional approval. He put the 82nd Airborne, the 75th Ranger Regiment on the ground, and he rescued them. And within about 2 or 3 months, we were out of there. How about the invasion of Panama? Manuel Noriega. We had any number of things happening. It was getting really bad. We believed that there was a corrupt government that had its interest was in destroying parts of the United States or our sovereignty, dealing things to our people that were harmful. George H.W. Bush did not seek congressional approval. Again, the 82nd Airborne, the 75th Ranger Regiment, elements of the 101st, it was a full-scale invasion. We invaded Panama. We took over Panama. We liberated Panama. We actually took Manuel Noriega captive, brought him back to the U.S. and put him in prison and put him in a military tribunal. And ain't nobody said nothing about the fact that he did not seek congressional approval. And then there's Obama, who went into Pakistan on a special operations raid to get bin Laden. Wound up getting bin Laden, and I'm glad. No congressional approval. That was a friendly nation. That was not even a hostile nation. That allegedly is one of our allies in the Middle East. Well, Southwest Asia. No congressional approval. All I'm saying is this. You want to amaze your friends, point out to them that this is a difference. We're not talking about the War Powers Act. We're not talking about whether or not congressional approval is needed for a statement of war, because there's no declaration of war. In fact, Trump has said very precisely, this was a limited strike for a singular purpose. We are not at war with Iran. Those are his words. We are not at war with Iran. Iran has the choice now. All right, we're taking the last break of the day. I'll come right back and get some text messages and clean us up out of here. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Couple of quick texts and I'll go to the phones. Joe from Athens says, seeking congressional approval eliminates the element of surprise. Well, that would be true. Ain't no secrets. In fact, that's one of the things that people were saying was so amazing about this military operation was it was not small. I mean, there was a lot of moving parts, but the operational security, the OPSEC, if you will, was pretty stellar by DC standards because there usually ain't no secrets in DC. But this thing, although I will tell you this, one of the things that I saw, which is probably true, there were people saying, the pizza places around the Pentagon have been selling a lot of pizza at night.
And it's always right before something happens.
Right before something happens. Stop ordering pizza, fellas. You're giving it away. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says, Phil gets a nearly perfect A+ for his absolutely amazing performance, which means today's winner is obviously the absolutely brilliant JP with a perfect A+ for a spectacular performance. Congratulations. By the way, JP, don't rule out marrying a girl with a hyphenated name because I met some pretty great women with hyphenated names.
I don't believe you.
I don't believe it either. Not true.
That's a red flag.
Hey, let's go to the phones. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm north of Nashville.
Wow.
Even though it's 100 degrees here.
Yeah, man. Smoking the rubber off your tires, I tell you what.
Yeah, I'm just hoping my pole recaps hang into this heat.
Yeah, what's the
recaps
deal
don't like heat.
What's the deal with truckers and recaps? Why do y'all do that? Is it just cheaper to buy them that way or what?
Cheaper. Yeah, it's cheaper. And then wintertime, it don't run too bad. But then summertime, the heat gets them and boom, it's just like a Moab.
Listen, I have been next to a truck when one of those blew. It was like an IED went off. I mean, I was having flashbacks. It was bad.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely ring your ears from up in the cab here, even from the back of the trailer. So yeah, it's bad.
Well, what do you think, man? We've been talking about the Iran stuff the entire show, different aspects of it. What do you think?
Well, let me plant a little seed for you to do a monologue on.
Oh Lord.
Can you tell me the difference between the radical Muslim Ayatollahs and the radical liberal Democrats? They both have the same exact thing. They want the destruction of America. They hate America. They hate freedom. I'm not seeing very many differences in them, to tell you the truth. So
I was waiting for a punchline. You got all serious on me.
Yeah, I am serious because I'm talking about the radical ones, and that they go out and burn the place down and stuff, and they'll go out and shoot people, and they hate America. That they basically said that they want they hate America and they want it to make it anew. So. I see no difference between them and the radical Muslims, to tell you the truth.
Right now they are decidedly in the minority. Thank goodness. I think they're even these self-inflicted wounds. They're. I mean, like I said earlier about being on the wrong side of everything. I think they're wearing out their welcome. At least some of the more extreme leftists are.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the same as the Ayatollahs and everything. I think they're in the minority as well, but they still have the control of the army and stuff like that, because I think, like I say, the people would uprise and overthrow them if they could, if they had the military might to do it. I'm figuring they probably are like every other society that they've had their guns taken away, and they pretty much got to march to the step of who has got the guns.
Well, yeah. And that's why liberals don't like guns. But
exactly.
Listen, I don't know what it's going to take for the Democrats to become a viable. They have big pockets of blue. I mean, let's not forget that, like San Francisco, Chicago, Oakland, New York City, big old pockets of blue. But outside of those urban areas, they have no following whatsoever.
Yeah. But the trouble is, it's a lot of concentration in those areas, and it's enough to keep them. It's enough to keep AOC elected and all these Theresa Shalit elected. It's not. I don't blame those people for getting elected. I blame those people who are electing them.
I agree.
They're truly that. They're truly. You can tell the intelligence of a district by who they elect.
Well, it's funny you
So
say that too. So both of my deployments, I had guys on my team from New York. They were all from upstate New York. And then when I was on my second deployment, I was attached to a unit out of Oregon. And the Oregon guys said everybody in Oregon hates the left side of the state because it's so liberal that it drives all the politics. But west of the Cascade Mountains, east of the Cascade Mountains, they said it's like being in Alabama. But then the folks in New York said the same thing. In Buffalo, they can't stand New York City. They wish it would succeed and become its own state so they could actually have their own politics. But it's
it's just like everywhere in Illinois except for Chicago. The rest of the state's perfectly fine. It's this total concentration of idiots in Chicago that keep the state being run like it is.
It's jackassery and kakistocracy all wrapped up. All right, brother. Hey, be safe on the road. The music's about to play. We'll talk at you tomorrow. All right.
All right, Phil. You all have a good one.
You too, buddy. We'll see you. Yeah, and quit buying retreads, by the way. Your husband go up by next to you?
No, I'm not.
It'll either wake you up or it'll take you out, one or the other. It's like a bomb going off next to your car. Just saying. All right, you guys, listen, the music's about to play, but I will just say right now, just keep your head on a swivel. Do. You see something, you say something. But at the same time, we will not allow our lives to be governed by a rogue nation on the far side of the world. This is the United States of America, and God is blessing it and still blessing it today. That being said, yeah, there's more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.